Alright, Zeebe018 is now out, and here's a quick getting started guide for you. Best place to start from is Zeebe.io, the website, and from here you can get to docs, FAQs, blog, and even the GitHub repos. So we're going to start with the docs. Let's go in here, install, and the easiest way to get started with Zeebe is using Docker. So from here you can see there's a link to the Zeebe Docker Compose repo, so we'll open that in a new tab. We're going to go to the main page and clone or download. Copy this. I'm starting here with pretty much a blank slate. I'll let you know when there are things that are already there, but this is empty, so we're going to go git clone and we're going to clone that in. Now, to use Docker Compose, you're going to need to have Docker installed on your machine. So you go to docker.com, click on get started, go down here and download desktop and take a tutorial. Now, if you're on Windows or Mac, once you get it down and configured, on my Mac up in the top right hand corner I've got this little Moby, the whale, and if I click on it and say preferences, I get my preferences pane up. And I have my memory set to 2.5 gigs for the Docker Moby VM. And when I've had it set to 2 gigs, sometimes I've had the broker explode from a lack of memory when I've put it under heavy load, but I haven't been able to do that with 2.5 gigs. So if you have trouble with the broker crashing because of memory, just increase the amount of memory available to it. Okay, this is still coming down. So Docker really is the best way to get started with Zeebe because you don't have to worry about downloading and installing a Java virtual machine, making sure you've got the right compatibility, the right version, any of that kind of stuff. Predictable, consistent, reproducible environment with Docker. So it's down. Let's have a look inside that directory. Zeebe Docker Compose, ls. We've got a bunch of different kind of profiles in here. We are going to use for this broker only. So we just cd into broker only. And then let's just cat out the Docker Compose file that's in there. It's pretty simple. It's got an image, Camunda Zeebe018.0. And we're actually exposing 2 ports here. We only need to expose one, which is 26500. That is the port for the gRPC gateway. So all of the code that you write communicates with the broker via the gRPC gateway, and the gRPC gateway comes embedded into the broker for ease of development. But in production you can separate them out so they're standalone, but we got them bundled together here. And then the gateway communicates with the actual broker or brokers in a cluster over 26501 and also 26502, but this is the only one that's client facing. So to bring this up, we just go docker compose up. When you run this command for the first time, it's going to pull the Docker image from Docker Hub. On my machine the image is already here, so it goes straight into the boot sequence. The broker is now starting and the broker is now started. That's all there is to that. It's like the simplest way to get this thing to run. Now just to show that it is running, we're going to go into workspace, scratch, and into the Zeebe Docker Compose. So in here, if you have another look at it, as well as the profiles, we have this bin directory, and in the bin directory we have the zeebectl binary, which is the Zeebe command line. And on a Mac I'm going to run .darwin. On Windows you'd run .exe, and on Linux you just run zeebectl. So we're just going to say status. So that queries the gRPC gateway, and it's telling me that there's a cluster size 1, partition count 1, replication factor 1. There is one broker, which is broker 0. 192.168.16.2 is the Docker interface. So it's an internal Docker network, and it can communicate with it on 26501. So when I ran that command, zeebectl, it actually contacted the gRPC gateway on localhost 26500, and then that gRPC gateway is giving me information about the internal configuration of the broker cluster, which in this case only has one broker in it. So anyway, it's up and running. That's what we can see from this. Now we need 2 more things. We've got a broker, it's up and running. We now need to create a workflow and deploy it to the broker, and we need some client code. So to create and deploy a BPMN workflow. Now the link is not really accessible through the documentation right now, but there's an update coming really soon that makes it really easy to find this. In the meantime, what you're looking for is what's called the Zeebe modeler. It's a GUI kind of tool in Electron. So Zeebe modeler, we're going to Google it in Bing. Here it is in GitHub, Zeebe Modeler, a desktop application for modeling Zeebe workflows with BPMN. Go to releases. 0.6.2 is the latest one, and you can see we've got all the things here: Linux, Mac, and Windows. So you download it from here and just run it. Now I've already got it installed, so I'll just open it up over here. So create a new BPMN business process modeling notation diagram. So we're going to go from our start event, and we're going to create a new service task. So ID, we're going to call this, we're going to make it a log task. So we'll call it log task 001, name, log task 001. The type is going to be log, and retries, we'll give it 3. Okay. Now click here and then add the end event. Now we've got a complete workflow here. We start the workflow. It's going to create a log task job to be serviced by some worker, and then once that gets serviced, it's done. I'll just click in the background, and we're going to call this demo workflow. So this is the name or the process ID of the workflow of the diagram, and then we'll give it a human readable name. We'll call it demo workflow. Good, and then we're going to save it. So we are saving it to workspace scratch Zeebe demo. Oh, there is no Zeebe demo. Let's create one. Zeebe demo, and we'll call it demo workflow. Done. Okay, so if I open a new tab and I cd into workspace scratch Zeebe demo ls, and here you can see there's my demo workflow. So here's how we deploy it into the broker. I go back to my Docker Compose repository with the the Zeebe CTL binary, and then I'm going to run Zeebe CTL Darwin. This time I'm going to say deploy, and then I give it the path to that demo workflow. There it is. Tell it to deploy. It's deployed. It's given it a unique key. Workflow BPMN process ID demo workflow version 1. Great. Now what we'll do is in our Zeebe demo directory, we're going to create a JavaScript project. JavaScript's my main programming language, so we'll do this demo in that. So npm init -y, accept all the defaults. I use TypeScript, so we're going to do tsc --init. It's going to initialize it, and then we're going to install the Zeebe Node client library. So that's a JavaScript / TypeScript client library. It's hosted on npm that you use to write JavaScript clients to communicate with the Zeebe broker. So that's pulling that down, and then we're going to go code space dot to open Visual Studio Code in this directory. Here it comes. Pull this down here. Okay, nice color. Right, switch to terminal here. Pretty simple what we're about to do. Just create a new index.ts file. Okay, so we're going to import from Zeebe Node, and we're going to import the Zeebe client. Okay, so we're going to create a main function, immediately invoke it. First thing we do is we're going to create a new Zeebe client. So ZBC equals new Zeebe client, and we've got to give it the gateway address. So that's localhost :26500. That's the gRPC gateway that our client communicates with, and then that gRPC gateway sends all the commands to the various brokers in the cluster, which in our case is just one broker. Now we're going to create a worker, so we just say create worker. We're going to give it a unique name, my first worker, why not? The task type that this worker services is log tasks, and then we create the handler function, which takes a job and a complete function. Make it a lambda. And all we're going to do in here is we're going to say console.log we're going to log out the job that gets passed to the worker so you can get a sense of what the worker is dealing with. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to complete the job with a success. And that's it. I use TS Node, which allows me to run TypeScript code. It sort of automatically transpiles it for me. So TS Node index.ts. This will start the worker. Started. So my first worker is now ready for tasks of type log. Now if I jump back to the Docker Compose repository where my Zeebe CTL binary is, I'm now going to start an instance of that workflow. So if I go zeebe ctl.darwin and I say create an instance, and then I pass in this business process ID from the deployed BPMN. There we go, created it, and you can see here that my worker has received a job from the workflow instance that I created, and this is the kind of data that your worker gets to work with. So it's got the job headers, the type, the key, custom headers, the number of retries, and also the variables for the job. So there are none in this case. So we created a workflow instance, it ran to completion. Our single logged task got serviced by this worker here. So let me show you how you pass in variables. So you wouldn't really do this, in production. You would programmatically create workflow instances either through some kind of REST interface that you would write yourself or in code. So we're going to pass in some variables. It's a JSON string, and take notice of the quotes here. It took me a little while to figure this out. You've got to quote the whole thing, and then the quotes inside the JSON object need to be backspaced, escaped, backslashed. So customer ID 34, created it, and if you look over here at my worker, you can see that it received a job where the variables were customer ID 34. So what I can do in here in my worker code is I'll just log out only the job variables, not the whole thing. So then Control C, stop that, restart it. Let's run another job. This time we'll give it 62. And you can see there, customer ID 62. So now let me show you how we add to or change the variables in the workflow engine state. So we'll go back to our diagram. We're going to delete the end event, and we're going to add another service task. This one is going to be log2 task 001, and then we'll end after that. So in here, ID, this is log2 task 001, name, keep that the same, and then the type is called log2. It could be anything, but that's what we're going to call it. There we go. Save that. Go back to my Zeebe CTL and redeploy. So deploy it, and you'll see that now it's deployed the same one, same process ID, but now version 2. So we need to create a worker to service this second type. So we're going to copy this worker code, and let's call it my second worker, and it's going to service tasks of type log2. Save that and restart the workers. There we go. Now if we now start another workflow instance, you can see here that essentially all my workers have done is logged out the job variables. Now if I modify my first worker, and in the complete success method I pass in, let's say approved true, restart the workers, and then start an instance of that workflow. You can see here that my first worker got customer 62, customer ID 62, and it added approved true to the state of the workflow. So my second worker gets that state, and you can even do overwrite existing fields. So if I say we're going to update the customer ID to be 99, and then run this, you can see here that Worker 1 has updated the customer ID, so worker 2 now sees the new state of the workflow where the customer ID is now 99. So the state is held in the broker and managed there, and then the workers get a copy of the state passed to them when they get a task to work on, and then they pass back any updates to the state, and that gets merged with the current state object in the broker, and that becomes the new state of the workflow for any workers that service tasks that come after that. And I'll just show you one more thing here, which is quite interesting way to genericize workers, and that is that you have custom headers. So I can add a header and I can say message, and then let's just put hello world in here. Hello world, let's say that. Hello world. Save that. So now we redeploy our third version of the workflow. You can see here, version 3. We're going to go back here, and what we'll do is get rid of this. We're going to log out the variables, and then we're going to do this. We're also going to do console.log, and then it's job.customHeaders. Okay, run. Workers are ready for action, and then create an instance. So you can see that my worker gets a copy of any custom headers, and this is a great way where you can have the same worker connect to the same task type, but you can modify the behavior of the task type, or you can add some additional metadata in your business process by using the custom headers field. So that gives you, a real sense of how easy and how quick it is to get started with using Zeebe 0.18, and how you can run it using Docker Compose, how you can create business process, workflows using the Zeebe modeler, and how you can very quickly and easily write workers using the Zeebe Node JavaScript library. And we have libraries for Go and Java, and there are also community supported libraries for like C#, Ruby, Python, and there's a Rust one under development at the moment. Real easy to get started with it, and I look forward to seeing the innovative, interesting, and highly performant systems that you create using Zeebe.